Hello viewers and welcome to the latest in my series of short interviews with interesting atheists. My latest victim is Chris Atlee, who describes himself as the atheist pastor and spends quite a lot of time haunting YouTube. Here he is. How the devil are you, Chris?
I am absolutely fantastic. How about yourself, John?
Yeah, I'm fine too, thanks. You've had floods in Australia, I believe.
We've had floods, we've had fires, we've had well, obviously the pandemic that's going around. I'm just waiting for the locusts, and if that happens, then and all the frogs and everything, I may consider going back to religion. Well, it's we're kind of at that point here in Australia. We've had a little bit of everything.
Yes. Okay. Well, better luck in the future is all I can say.
Yes.
So I've had an easy ride, really, because I didn't have the usual journey, because luckily I chose my parents well. They weren't religious. So we didn't go to church on a Sunday. We listened to the radio. That's all there was at the time. And I didn't meet serious religion until I started to go to school, because the law required a morning assembly on Christianity. But it didn't make any impact on me because I didn't see it happening in my family group, So I regarded it as something that other people do, but it wasn't for me. And then, of course, when I got to secondary school, I fell in love with science, subsequently became a science teacher, and here I am now, retired and locked down in my studio.
And no looking back, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. So what's your story? I know you've got an interesting one.
Well, funnily enough, I guess my origins are similar to yours. I was raised in a non-religious family. No one in my family is actually religious. We always marked ourselves as either Church or England or Anglican, depending on what the terminology was at the time on the census. And there would be the occasional trip to church. I think at one point when I was about 10, my mother decided that, no, we should go to church and it'll be really good. We went to church and I asked too many questions and we were asked not to come back, or she was asked not to bring me back to the children's service. So that was my experience with religion. So I went through high school, no interest in it. But what I did develop was a keen interest in history. And I'm a historian now, funnily enough. So I'd always had that interest in, I guess, the mythology and things like that. But my view was always that religion was garbage. I always had a bit of a spiritual kind of feel, I guess, but it was always religion was garbage. And I used to, challenge people in their beliefs and things like that. And I remember challenging a friend of mine. He was at work and he was like how every workplace has got the evangelist. He was the evangelist in the workplace, and I challenged him on a few things, and he gave me the first ever honest answer I got from a Christian, which was, you know what, I don't know the answer. My pastor's better on that. If you're not doing anything Sunday, come along to church and ask him. So I thought for a laugh I'd go along. Anyway, the next thing you know, I'm giving my life to Jesus somehow. I don't know how that happened, although on reflection, at the time I was in a bit of a place where I lacked community. I was lonely. I guess both of my parents had remarried, and I didn't really have a place in the world, I think. And I had all these people embracing me, wanting to know who I was, and I really got caught in that community. Anyway, that began a journey for me that it's, as you can probably tell, I don't mind talking. I can hold a conversation. So pretty quickly I got earmarked as a future pastor. Went through all the leadership programs. I can also hold a tune. So they had me on the worship team leading worship and singing, and I really sort of got caught up in the whole community aspect of it. And for many years I was on that path. Eventually got to the point where I decided to, all right, well, we've had about 7 or 8 years where people are telling me I really should study it and really should become a pastor. So that's what I'm going to do. And actually went and did a Bachelor of Theology and a Bachelor of Ministry. Oh. And it was while I was there that I actually started reading the Bible. And the funniest thing happened when I started reading the Bible. You'll never guess what. It was, I know it was crazy, but there was one class in particular, and it stands out to me. And it was an Old Testament class. And one thing I struggled with was because it's the people around me and were very much young Earth creationist, and I'd never had a scientific brain, I guess, or I'd never really gotten into science too much. I knew that history probably disagreed with the young Earth, but I didn't know enough about it. So I guess I was a little bit agnostic on it. Anyway, we're talking about origins and Genesis, and I actually asked the question, well, how would Genesis work in an old Earth or an evolution model? Because there's arguments for evolution, and how would it work in that model? And I got laughed at. I got laughed at by the lecturer, and I got laughed at by the class. And at that point I thought, no one's here to learn. It dawned on me, no one's here to learn. Yeah. They're just here to be spoon-fed exactly what they believe.
Yeah.
And it started me on a journey of, I'm going to look further into this. And the more I looked into it, I guess with an open mind, the more I just realized, this is garbage. It took me, so I ended up dropping out of, I made an excuse to drop out of Bible college because, at this point I'm married with children, and as I'm becoming an atheist, the thing going through my head is, because we met at church, and it was, met and got married 4 months later, and tried to do everything right, and with a perfect Christian couple, and in leadership over and running groups, and doing all this kind of stuff. So my biggest concern for a long time was, how's my wife going to react? Is this going to end my marriage? What about my kids? How do I have those conversations? And funnily enough, it was over a few glasses of wine one night, and I finally got the courage to say to my wife, look, I need to talk to you. I don't want to go to church this weekend. I'm having issues and struggles with it. And she said, okay, let's talk about this. We spoke about it. And ironically, I found out that she'd been having similar issues and similar struggles and had similar concerns. So had we have spoken to each other a year or so earlier, we probably could have saved ourselves, 10% of our wage for the year in tithes, and gotten our Sundays back. So that was how I guess became an atheist. So that was the first step. And then the next step was actually having to leave the community. How that happened was we had a same-sex marriage vote in Australia. And I'd been someone, because I'd been involved politically. I do have, I am someone who is political. And what had happened was I'd been involved politically with, Christian organisations, and so I've done a complete 180 here. Like I can't emphasise this enough. Yep.
Can I put in a Me Too, #Me Too here for political?
Yeah, it's an addictive problem, isn't it? That political stuff, but So I ended up when this same-sex marriage vote came out. I had no issue with it. It's not something I was overly active in campaigning for, but I did put out that I'd voted yes for same-sex marriage. We'd moved area not too long before, so a lot of the people from the church community, they knew I'd moved. They didn't realise that I'd stopped going to a church altogether. Yeah. So it was I then had to put out, I don't believe anymore. And what I found was instantly, there was one of three things happened with people I knew. The majority, that was it. They just were not talking to me.
Yeah.
I had a few who are still my friends regardless.
How very Christian of them.
It is extremely Christian of them. And then I had the other ones who have spent the last few years trying to reconvert me because, to get the pastor back, well, isn't that a sculpt? It's, and sorry, when I say pastor, I was never ordained, but I preached at churches, I was in leadership. I just hadn't gone through and ticked off the degree basically to become the paid one. So, and that's part of the reason I use the handle atheist pastor, because one of the things that I had, all the Christian prophets had prophesied over me that I was going to be a pastor, and I didn't want to let them down. So I just became the atheist pastor instead. So
yeah, makes sense.
That's where I am here.
what you said about there's always an evangelical person in the community or in your workplace reminds me of one of our RE teachers many years ago when I was teaching in a big school. And he was keen to become a pastor. So he used to go and preach at his local church. And then on the Monday in the staff room, he'd come and tell us that he taught.
Okay.
He taught, preach, praught.
Oh, that's an interesting play on word. I haven't heard that one before, but I guess if it worked for him, I hope that didn't then lead him to telling everyone about. So here's what I preached about, and then trying to basically get a sermon in the staff room.
No. Well, I lost touch with him decades ago because we all moved schools and taught somewhere else. But he introduced me to the word praught.
I can't say I heard that one, but the Christian me would probably use that if I knew of it. So it's probably good that you told me now rather than a few years back.
You'd be wearing it out, wouldn't you?
I can guarantee it.
So now that you've become an atheist, what is it? What do you think atheism is?
You know what? That's a really interesting question, and you see a lot of argument for it. For me, being an atheist is actively not believing that a God exists, or taking the belief position, I guess, that there is no gods. That's what it is for me. I know that for a lot of people, they just say it's simply a lack of belief. That's not the definition I'd use, but my attitude is, you know what? I'm not going to tell people who or what they are.
No, indeed. They can tell us. We can ask them what they are, can't we?
Yeah. Yes. Look, if someone wants to tell me that they're a giant purple people eater, well, I'm not going to argue it with them, but I'm probably not going to think that that's what they are.
No. We can all describe ourselves how we like, but there is such a tendency to straw man everyone, isn't there? To decide that on the part of theists, many theists decide that you're labeled as a God hater or purposeless or immoral.
Oh yes. Oh look, immoral. The two main ones that I got from people was, well, you just want to sin. You know, the whole moral thing. And look, when you look at the rules in the Bible, I mean, the rules in the Bible, if I've got the option between, you know, sinning and not sinning, yeah, I mean, the first four commandments are all about, you know, how you need to worship and love God. So if we're going off that, hell yeah, I'm call me a sinner all day, every day. And look, I mean, realistically, it's that the moral system that's set up in the Bible was something that was written 2,500 years ago by Babylonian exiles, who were trying to enforce nationalistic ideas, nationalistic rules, and give control to the prophets and the writers of the Bible, you know, to basically swing the rules to make sure that, you know, the right people were in charge. So
yeah,
you've got to look at it within that context. And certainly the other thing I got was that I must hate God. And I had to say to people, no, I don't hate God. I don't believe there is a God. If there was a God, having read the Bible, yeah, I'd probably take issue with him, and I don't think I'd be worshipping him. But no, I don't hate God any more than, and I know it's cliche, but any more than I hate Voldemort or you know, Emperor Palpatine.
Or they hate Zeus. Yes,
exactly. No, you know, it's and I love using Zeus as the example whenever I have these conversations, or Thor, because they go, well, that's just ridiculous. I go, well, why?
Yes.
Why? The stories about Zeus are older than the stories about Yahweh. So let's talk about that.
Listen, Chris, I'm thoroughly enjoying this, but we're coming up to the end of our time. And what I think
I do tend to talk.
I've noticed you're a motor mouth.
I am. It's helped me in politics and life in general.
Yes. So what I suggest we do is bring this interview to an end, but schedule a talk where we get together and discuss, for example, the commandments. Would you be up for that?
I'd like that. Absolutely. Absolutely, we can certainly do that. It's I may as well put my my theological knowledge, to use for good.
Yes, absolutely. Well, one way we could do this would be for you to come on my Skeptics in the Hub show as a guest.
Absolutely, I'd love to.
Great. Okay. Well, I'll send you some proposed dates, and you can choose when you might like to appear. Right.
Sounds
now,
good.
my final question in this interview is, if I could give you a magic wand with atheist powers, what would you wish for? Well,
as a skeptic, I'd be questioning the wand. However, for the sake of the argument, look, the big thing for me is the separation of government and religion globally. I think that's something that needs to happen. I think churches should be treated like any other business. They should be taxed. But essentially, we need to have a complete secular world. So if we can have a secular world, I'm a happy man. And if people want to be religious, let them. Good luck. Believe what you want, but don't use that to enforce laws upon the rest of us.
No, indeed, it would be like astrologers deciding how we should behave, and they get taxed.
Yes, well, hey, don't laugh. That has happened before.
Oh, yes. Okay. Anyway, I'm going to let you take the rest of the day off. I know you've got a glass of wine ready there to relax.
Certainly do. Good Australian red. You can't beat it.
I know. We get it over here. It's fantastic, isn't it? Yep.
It is.
It's very fruity because of all the sun. Oh, and rain and fires and brimstone
and everything. You're going to get some interesting flavors. So it's so look, if the locusts come, that's going to be the end of the wine. I'm converting back to Christianity. That'll do me.
On that note, bye-bye.
Catch you all later.